I mean, when we moved to Spring Garden Road here, I had a little house in Fairview. I sold it, moved into an apartment, and my father put a second mortgage on his house.
Yeah.
So when you have to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
when you open the door in the morning, man, you are on the ball,
Yeah.
and you have no time for...
Welcome back to Beyond the Family Business. I am Luke Hanson McDonald. Today we have a very special interview with entrepreneur Ross McNeil that's really focused on the theme of father and son dynamics and, the uncomfortable reality that sometimes the next generation has to take things in a new direction to ensure the future of your family business. Ross is the son of the local hockey hero Dugger McNeil, who is the youngest NHL draft in Halifax history, a complete legend. And Ross is also the CEO and owner of Duggers Menswear, the premier menswear store in Atlantic, Canada. He's one of the best dressed guys I know. He is a hell of a character, and was very generous with his time to explain the founding years of when his father started the family business, and got into some of the very challenging years where Ross had to step up, put everything on the line to take things in a new direction. And that really paid off, as Duggers is still the leader here in Atlantic, Canada in menswear, and they've been around for over 53 years. So you're definitely going to want to hear this one. All right, enjoy. Who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
I'm Ross McNeil. I own and run Duggers Menswear on Spring Garden Road. Been in Halifax all my life, and actually grew up in Fairview, where I know a lot of your family did, so we have ties for that. So that's, I'm Dugger McNeil's son, basically, to be quite frank.
Which we're going to get into that.
Right.
So first off, for the very small population that doesn't know what Duggers does, what is Duggers?
Well, it's interesting you say it, because the business is 53 years old now.
Wow.
So I think this is great to do this, because I think there are younger people now that maybe don't know, but Dugger's been a family-owned business, was in Bears Road Shopping Center from the early 70s to 1992, 93, when we moved to Spring Garden Road. So, we sell better end, arguably high end for a lot of people it is, but of course you go to big cities and we're we're in the medium category.
Yeah.
But it's certainly better end clothing, and our competition is really more the major cities. Harry Rosen is probably our biggest competition, if we're to be honest. They're great people.
Yeah.
They got big 15 stores across the country. But they would be probably our biggest competition.
Yeah, the closest comparison.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. So you just briefly mentioned it, but who started Duggers and in what year?
My dad started it. Hockey was his career. He was a fantastic hockey player. And when that wound down in the early 70s, he had worked in the summers for a local menswear store from early 60s. And so he would come back from playing hockey, work for them in the summers. They didn't make a lot of money playing hockey back then, even at that level. So he kind of had that. That's where his interest was tweaked. And when that didn't work out, really he'd done hockey and sold menswear. So that's really what initiated the store in Bears Road.
And what year was it again?
71.
71, okay.
Yeah.
I was able to find the video from when your father was inducted into the Sports Hall of Fame,
right.
which was super cool.
Yeah.
Could you give sort of a quick summary of what was his hockey career and some of his huge successes he had?
Yeah. I'm emotionally proud of it. He was the youngest guy ever drafted out of here back in. He was 16 years old, so it was 1946.
Wow.
He was drafted by the Boston Bruins. And he tells great stories of going down there in a train by himself, and he doesn't know anybody. And, so he that was his start of hockey. I mean, he had played on the Chocolate Lake. He skated there all his life. But he ended up being drafted by the Montreal Canadiens at, I think, 19 is when he went to Montreal.
Crazy.
And in those days, they had 4 defensemen. But you wouldn't remember, but some of the listeners that are probably over 50 would know that names like Doug Harvey and the Rocket Richard. My dad was on a first name basis with these guys, because he was what they call he was known basically as the fifth defenseman. There was the Montreal Royals and Montreal Canadiens. Mm-hmm. So he played on their farm team for 5 years. Mm-hmm. And he was, they practiced together. It was different than it is now. But the Canadians owned you. So there were he didn't know. He signed a contract that basically they owned him,
His career, yeah.
His career. And so when he didn't crack that lineup after 4 years of it, 5 years, he just said, I'm going to go back home. But the Canadian organization really, they had a lot of respect for my dad, just by letters I've seen. So he came back here and he started a senior team. Mm-hmm. And that senior team won a couple national titles. They're called the Halifax Atlantics. But I remember him telling me one night in the old Forum, it's supposed to hold 5,300 people or something. The fire marshal said, Dugger, if there's not 7,500 in here, there's not one. Yeah. So the hockey in those days, was like I literally, when I've been Dugger McNeil's son all my life, from the age of 12 years old through to my mid-30s, I literally, I couldn't hardly speak to anybody that didn't know my dad. And I'm talking when I played a bit of hockey myself, but being in Cape Breton or Truro. He was...
He's a local legend, for sure.
He was a local legend. I appreciate that. Yeah, he really was, Yeah,
very cool. Yeah. So you played hockey yourself as well?
Yeah, but I went on a team I shouldn't even talk about, but it was a midget, 16 years old, to Toronto, right? Like it was a provincial team. And when I got there was like 4 scouts wanted to talk to me because they didn't have all the internet and everything, right?
Yeah.
So I walked out in my underwear, And I said, they were looking for Dugger McNeil's son. I went out in my underwear. I said, boys, the only thing my dad and I have in common in hockey is our last name. And they said, yeah, okay, see you later. So, they even then, those people knew. So, he really built an amazing. I went into Montreal Forum with him, and he was friends with all of them and went up in the press boxes, and it was pretty cool. It had a big impression on me.
Yeah, no kidding, absolutely. Yeah. And did that background of sports play a big role in his leadership style and his entrepreneurship? Coming from the hockey world, did that teach him skills that made him an effective entrepreneur? Well,
it must have, because he was a playing coach too. So which was hard to do, coaching your playing. So I never thought of it, but probably did. And he was always. He was in politics. That's another whole part. He was a member of the Stanfield government from 60 to 70. Wow. And he had great stories about that because there was no money in it. Yeah. But because he was so well known, they came after him. He was never into but he really appreciated Bob Stanfield. So he went into it with kind of, eyes wide shut or whatever, right? All of a sudden he wins a few terms. And but it really... It didn't enhance his career. He was working for this other menswear store at the time, and I was young then. But my mother said he was never home because of between politics and I remember in maybe 69, 70, Christmas Eve. This is what it was like back then, which is I find so amazing. He got a call because he represented St. Margaret's, which was all the way down the Eastern Shore or the South Shore, St. Margaret's Bay. So he gets a call because the road's not plowed down in by past Brookside, towards Peggy's Cove. So Christmas Eve, we get in the car in a snowstorm. I go with my dad like I'm a kid, and I remember going up these steps to get the snowplow driver out to go plow the road.
Crazy.
The things that were expected.
Yeah.
Right? But he did it. I've never heard a man complain in his life. And but so, when you look at his body of work. Yeah. I think that, a career was incredible, but money was never his motivator. Yeah. Never. Yeah. He died in the house in Fairview. Yeah. He bought that in 1951. Wow. And when we went through the real hard time, we should have been out of business in 92. There was a time that because I just worked for Dad right out of school. Yeah. So I just thought this is the way it is. You go to work every morning, and we got an old car, and it's all good, and we're having fun in Fairview. But that was a real eye-opener when the bank froze our line of credit, and we had all these issues. So I said, whoa, this is not good.
Yeah.
And it is not in one way disrespectful to my father. I think
yeah.
it's very cool that money wasn't his motivator.
Yeah.
You know, my mom tells stories of when they were in politics that they'd come to the legislature here, and a lot of the ladies would say, well, you're not going to stay in Fairview, are you? And my mother said, why would we ever leave?
Yeah.
Like that was not their shtick, right?
Yeah. Salt of the earth.
It just, like down to earth. But, you know, you realize, okay, you have a business, and that was my university education because, okay, we have this business, and everybody thinks it's pretty good, but, man, this thing is, like, on the rails here.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind asking a couple other questions. No, 100%.
It's fun to kind of think of it, you know. I don't know.
No, absolutely. Don't worry. We'll come around to that. So I guess the next question I'd have was, so first of all, your dad started Duggers in the early 70s, 71.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But did he also have other businesses in Bears Road as well at the time?
Well, geez, wow, you must have did a little research. In about the mid-'80s, it was the first liquor license in the province of Nova Scotia, actually, from back in the 50s. The owner, Mr. West, was a customer, and he didn't have anybody taking over his business. So he said to my dad, I was there then, and he said, if you guys, it was $50,000. He said, you can just take it, right? So that wasn't a little bit of money, but it's right in the mall.
Yeah.
So we took over that restaurant. Just like one day we kept it the Flamingo, but we changed the name to Duggers Lounge.
Yeah.
And my sister, I have two sisters, but that one sister was a national figure skating champion. I joke that I went from being Dugger's son to Marie's brother.
Yeah.
But so she and I and my other sister, I was doing the menswear store, but they were there in the daytime, and I would go down at night. And we took that business, like we ramped it, right? It did, I think, the number seems small now, but in those days it was doing like 700,000. We took it like $1.1 million in the first year, which was huge, but we lost money. So much theft.
Oh, really?
See, we didn't know how to run a restaurant.
Yeah.
When I look back, if I'd gone to some of the great restaurateurs like the McAlbys or the Risley's and said, look, we have this place. Will you guys show us how to run it, and we'll give you 20%. Like you learn, right?
Yeah.
So that was that ended up, we kept it going for quite a while, but that turned out to be a big hit. We kind of gave it to somebody else, but took some of the debt, and then took years to pay that back. So there's been some learning lessons here, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think food service is notorious for being tough to make money in, right?
Well, they say food service and then retail.
Yeah,
fair. That's it.
So you must be doing something right to survive for 50-plus years. That's pretty incredible.
Well, probably, when you think of it, honest to God, I never think of it this way, but the retail experiences, the restaurant experiences probably led to some of the retail success. Hard times, and then you realize, okay, these things got to be covered. Because my sister is an accountant. She's brilliant. She say, Ross, like, this is not good. I said, well, where's it going? I don't know where it's going. We finally found somebody stealing a lot of money. Anyway, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what was your path into the family business? How did you get into it?
Necessity.
Yeah.
Because, at the high school, 78, 79, the business 5, 6 years, my mom and dad were working it. And they really needed the help. It sold jeans at first and stuff, and then grew. So it was really through grade 11 and 12, I think, certainly grade 12, I would go there from Halifax West in the afternoons. My mother would go home. Mm-hmm. So I always felt it as, I can't say I had this great passion for it. I didn't know what I wanted, to be honest. I probably wanted to sell cars or real estate because I love cars. But, you saw your parents need help. You do what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really how. There was no path to it, man. Like, just come to work.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's how you learned it, just, grassroots, putting in the hours.
Just grassroots, man. Like, not really taught it. If you look at it, I don't want to say this in any... Neither my dad or I we weren't highly educated guys or anything. He was a hockey player. I'm a guy out of grade 12 at the West that they threw the hockey gear out the backs and were in my math class and said, I'll give you 51. So, like, it's not poor me or anything. You just tell the story, right? So that's why we went so many years, like 8, 9 years, just with cash flow.
Yeah.
And, you could make it go and
Yeah.
try to, and then you find out, like somebody, I know you're highly educated. You and my son is, and so they get, I think there's a lot of street smarts that have maybe more than my son's education, but they get the cash flow. Like they understand that. They teach it a little better.
But you know what? Until I actually started working in businesses, like I did the MBA and all that stuff,
Right.
which is great. And you
Yes.
learn a lot of frameworks and principles and guidelines
Right.
that are helpful.
Yeah.
But until you actually run a business,
Yeah.
you don't learn the common sense needed
Yeah.
to navigate the day-to-day
That's
and
right.
work with people and to lead people and all those things. So
Yeah, you're right.
it's a different type of education, but you certainly, working in a business teaches you the reality of how to be an entrepreneur. I don't think you can learn that purely in school. I think that's almost impossible.
I think it's a gene or something. I honestly do, because there's a lot of bright people that have either failed to me or they wouldn't want to take the risk, and they had chances that would have been huge, but they couldn't take the. Because as you know, I mean, when we moved the Spring Garden Road here, I had a little house in Fairview. I sold it, moved into an apartment, and my father put a second mortgage on his house.
Yeah.
So when you have to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
when you open the door in the morning, man, you are on the ball,
Yeah.
and you have no time for. I remember this one girl. We're still great friends. She's fantastic. I went to her wedding, but we hired her after we had gotten going pretty good, and she was a beautiful girl, 6'1", blonde girl, and could really but she came in and she couldn't sell. She was terrible. Turned out being the best salesperson we ever had. But after like a month, I said, "You got to go. Like, I don't have time to help you."
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
She started crying. She said, "Just let me stay another week."
Yeah.
12 years later,
Yeah.
she got married and left.
Yeah.
Maybe 15 years later.
Yeah.
She became that good.
Yeah.
But, so I just didn't, I kind of felt sorry for her, but I didn't have the time to, there's no training. Like, just sell, man. Luke's coming in.
Yeah.
Get some stuff that looks good on him.
Yeah.
Because I think we've always managed to be price fair and that kind of thing. So I said, don't worry about that. Like, I know it's expensive, but they're not going to find it cheaper somewhere else, basically. So she just needed some confidence,
For sure. So how did you learn it sounds like when you started off, there was, maybe the business wasn't run as well as it could have been. And then over time, you guys became better and better operators. Was that just all through trial and error? Was there, was it in the 90s that change sort of happened, or how did you learn to, I guess, operate the business more efficiently?
So it's fantastic, and it's tough to express it properly because I don't want it to ever sound like my dad was not.
Yeah.
It's not anything great that I did. I took the greatest name and built it from the experiences. So when we moved down here, I basically bought the business for $1 because it was in rough shape. And all my dad says was, if it works, just look after me and your mother. We drove around Siddle Hill for 4 hours to make this decision because we had to move. So when we said we were going to move from Bears Road to this little store on Spring Garden Road, the bank they froze our line of credit. I still have the letter that says we can't make it. So the pressure was quite monumental, you know what I mean? But the other strategic thing that I guess, not just myself, another guy in the store that was a couple guys, and we kind of both, we said to Dad, there's only, what we noticed at Bears Road is we're selling your dad a suit and it's $3.99, but there's one across the hall at Jack Fraser's for $2.99, and ours isn't much better. We're selling ties for $20 and theirs are $15, and they're the same. So the move was, and I pick out ties because I went away and came back and I said, Dad just said, do whatever you think. And I came back and I said, every tie in the new store is going to be $75. And he said, are you out of your mind? But he said it in a fun way. Like, he didn't say don't do it. So we moved the level of stuff from Bears Road to Spring. We went another level because there was a big gap here for that. We saw everybody fighting over the same thing. They're all fighting over. At that time, there were 12 independent menswear stores in Halifax. I think there's 2 left now. But we all carried basically the same goods, buying from the same travelers that came around the Maritimes. They'd go to a hotel in Dartmouth and one downtown. So when we moved here, part of our strategic decision was we're going to go way to buy. And one of the biggest moves was we did a deal with Hugo Boss.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably 94 or 95. So I'm taking too long to tell you.
No.
So
great.
They were one of the, they're the biggest menswear clothing company on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat with the president in Toronto, we were very honest. The thing about when we had the hard times, we owed to trade money, I flipped back to my dad. Every supplier loved my dad.
Mm.
We've owed you money for 120 days. I'm saying we need more stuff.
Mm.
And they all said, so I learned from that. Your father never said the check was in the mail if it wasn't.
Mm.
He never said he was going to pay, and he's paid every bill. And we've never not paid a bill.
Mm-hmm.
Now we take discounts for the last 20 years because we pay so early we want a discount.
Yeah.
But the Hugo Boss people, I sat with the president, and he looked at me at Yorkville, and he said, I'm going to tell you something. I think you guys, I like the way you're thinking down there. But he said, if you don't pay me in 60 days, I'll take your house, I'll take everything.
Mm.
Like he looked, and I came out shaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the guys, I said, I don't know, boys, like this, my heart was pounding. But we still did it, right? But it turned out to be a catalyst. And then I got to meet so many. We became successful with them, so then they would take me on these trips.
Right.
And I would say the biggest single thing would be I was sitting on a plane first class because they were paying, going to Europe to this golf deal. And I sat beside a guy who I'm still friends with. He had 64 stores in Montreal. So he asked me about our history, right? Because I'm looking at him like he's an icon, 64 stores. And he said, you're never going to grow that business, Ross. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're doing what your father's done. And if you don't stop doing that, it'll never grow. There are not enough hours in a day to buy the goods, sell the goods, pay the bills, market the store. And it was like a light came on. I said, he's so right. I don't have time in the day because the business was growing 20% a month. So when you don't have the inventory, you got to be on the phone to buy more.
Yeah.
Like there was no hours in the day.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, you know what, like the smart guys that I respect around town, they're not running like a hamster cage like me.
Yeah.
So that year, I had sold about 55% of what we sold. I think 50% maybe. I had some good guys in there. This is never about all me. You got to have people. I know
absolutely.
that's a standard thing, right? But the last year I would have sold. Last 5 years, touched on 2%, 1%. So that's how it started to grow because I had time to then, okay, we got to find new brands. Let's take a little more space. Sit down with the accountants, find out. So that was another learning experience.
Time.
Some good mentors too, friends of my dad. Dad had hugely successful friends,
Yeah.
Like they were all so good to me. Those guys were great to me. And
incredible.
a couple, when we were really hard time, I'll never forget, they called me up and said, look, your father's a very proud guy. We know the trouble you're in.
Yeah.
We have a check for you guys. He'll never even know any amount you want. I thought it was fantastic. And one other guy that I want to say, his name was Roy Steed, who died. He built a company from nothing to 1,000 employees, and he died a few years ago. And I actually held a thing for a book that he wrote. And one day he called me up, and he said, you and your father are going to be in the store tomorrow? I said, yeah. He was one of the biggest Royal Bank shareholders. He was huge.
Crazy.
So he pulls up in his he said, I'll be there 11 o'clock. He pulls up in his Cadillac in front of the little old store, and he came in with one of the big wheels from the bank. Walks through, and he goes, like, I'd love to have the opportunity to do this with some other young guy.
Yeah.
Right? He goes, such and such, this is Luke.
Yeah.
This is Dugger.
Yeah.
Here's his son.
Yeah.
They're working the business. Come on, I want to show you in the back. Here's their tailor from Lebanon and there's that they employ. And here's two other guys been with them for every years. Leave these guys alone. Because I had to call every Monday, report the sales to the son of a guns, right?
Wow.
But to this day, he died, and he never told us. When Dad died, we talked about it before he died. We never asked him. But we think he went to the Royal Bank. They were the ones and said, leave them alone.
Yeah.
If they don't pay, I will.
Yeah.
We believe to this day he did that.
Yeah.
Because the phone call stopped.
Wow. That's an incredible story.
Isn't that amazing? And the pressure that took off, not just me, my mother.
Yeah.
Like it was incredible,
Yeah.
And this is a family business thing, right? So lots of families will relate to this. I mean, my mother, she was the most beautiful, kind lady. Your Uncle Ricky just loves my mother. Loved my mother. But, she was having such a hard time with it because she was saying, you and your father, like, you're walking out the door like we got the world by the tail, and the bank may take this house. But we said, Mom, you can't show. That's the side you can't show. Too many we know what's going on. You don't wanna, we're not walking around like we own the city, but we're not walking around with our chin on the ground either, because once that gets found out, that cannot be good, right?
Yeah. That is an incredible answer and an incredible story.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. One of the other things I've always noticed about your business is you have incredible customer service.
Yeah.
Like, it's a step above most companies that I know.
Right.
And, the story about your dad not being focused on money,
Right.
but everybody liked him. Obviously, that was a part of his own culture, and his vibe was that, he believed in that great customer experience. How do you create that customer experience, that unique, you go there and people just take care of you when you walk into your store?
He created it. And that's what I mean about, geez, I get emotional. It's amazing. But the money thing, because he was that good to everybody. If you couldn't pay, like, I don't know what's owed to us out there. And I know there's got to be 30 Catholic priests that got a soup from Dad when they, everybody mattered to him so much. They had a night for him years ago. My mother got up there, unrehearsed or anything, and she said, Dugger has friends that don't have 5 cents and friends that have 50 million. He sees them all the same. And, that's maybe an old saying. People say, it was the truth, man. Like, around my house, it was the truth. So it was his caring about people that it got instilled in us. And right now, there's still 4 people that saw that. So we've managed to, it's ingrained in me, and sometimes maybe I'm not in there like he was. Fortunately, I don't have to be there quite as much. But I think we still we do a survey that we call people, still the old way, but we call 50 purchasers over a period of time, and we still get the thing on the service. So I think last Monday, I kind of felt like it was time for, okay, guys, listen, there's a few things aren't the Dugger McNeil way here. It's not the Dugger's way. This is the Dugger McNeil way we service people. And it'll never leave this. So make sure you do this. And you know what? I get compliments all the time, I got to say. They're very good.
Yeah, 100%. It's a difficult thing to reproduce.
It's really difficult, I know. And I'm so disappointed. I was at a big store last night. I was amazed. It was amazing to me. And I'm with the manager, because I said, like, how do you, this is huge. I guess you get so big. I take it personal. If you go in and your pants are too short and nobody did it right or something, I take it very personally. I guess the manager of the big stores, they can't take it personal. But, man, I just find it, the service is such a dead thing that I preach all the time that if we're just good, people will think we're super because it's so bad out there.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
No, you're right. Absolutely. Well, I feel like a lot of retail has shifted to, price focus.
Exactly.
So they don't under-deliver on service, but you're so cheap, nobody expects you to have good service anyway.
That's right.
And
very true.
And so, that business model, it works, I guess. And, but it's always been, I've been a customer of yours since my very first suit was when I was probably 18, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember it was sort of like the first intro for me to what good customer service was, because it was such a hands-on, experience. So it is. It's certainly what you're known for. That's for sure.
Well, thank you. And but it is hard. I know you get people on here who got multiple businesses, and it's difficult. I was offered about 10 years ago from a gentleman in Newfoundland. Never met him, but he said he owned a shopping center, and he said, if you just come over here and open a Duggers, I'll pay for everything. I'll do the leaseholds. I'll pay the product. If we lose money, it'll cost you nothing. If we make money, I'll give you 50%. I just want a store like that. And I said, this is. I did think about it, but I said, this is a great offer, but you can't reproduce it. As much as I'm not in there, near like I was, I'm in there every 3 days for sure. Looking at the floor, looking at the corner, the dressing rooms, making sure that the fridges are stocked. And everybody else does. I got a great staff. Don't get me wrong. But just the edge all the time. Man, it's hard. You have 10 stores, even 5 stores to do that in. It's very hard.
No, you're right. It is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
The other thing that certainly I would say you're known for is your impeccable style. I mean, look how you're dressed. I'm dressed like a bum. You look like $1 million.
I wish I looked like you.
How did you get that understanding of style? Is that just from years in the business? Is it from traveling? Because I think the one thing that's unique about Duggars, as you said, you buy internationally.
Yes.
And Nova Scotia, or the Atlantic Canada, sometimes we're in a bit of a bubble, and yet Duggars is always on the edge of new trends. How did you learn that, and how do you reproduce that time and time again?
Yeah, I think I'm a great listener and I'm very observant. So I probably did have a bit of a flair for clothes, a bit, but I travel a lot. I travel a lot with Boss. I go to a lot of stores. I still go to Europe twice a year to kind of look in stores. And some people think that's a waste of money. But, I would think our mindset, 2 guys are going tomorrow to go buying in Toronto. I take my son to Chicago in 2 weeks' time. Like we're not just satisfied with what we have. 80% we're satisfied with. We grow with those people. The other 15, we got to throw new things in, So it's kind of funny because you joke about this jacket. I got this I bought these with my son in Chicago. They're very expensive. So we have to be careful because when they're very expensive. The Keaton are $8,000. This is $2,000.
Yeah.
But it's made by the same manufacturer.
Yeah.
But the only reason I'm pointing that out is coming down here, some dude in the car goes, "Hey, man, I love that jacket."
Yeah.
And then when I came on the corner by the pizza corner, there's 2 guys that are doing some delivery, and they both stand there and go, "Man, that is a badass jacket."
Yeah, 100%.
So, I thought, you got to keep that because those guys aren't ever buying anything from us, let me tell you. But they sure noticed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I guess I'd answer your question. Just kind of look a lot and try to, be observant what cool guys are doing,
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you have? So you've successfully moved into your family business. You've worked in it for much of your life. You've been part of your whole life. You've been part of success and failure, and you guys have lasted over 50 years, which is just astonishing. Statistically, that is
exactly.
crazy.
Yeah.
And are still an incredible destination here in Halifax or in Atlantic Canada. What advice would you have for next generation, family members that are thinking about joining the family business?
It's a hard one, and I've had some fathers come to see me because I can literally look you in the eye and say, my dad and I never had an argument. Not one step, right? Maybe there's times you want to punch me in the mouth, I don't know, but we never had that. And I think it was built from the hardship, though. So, because I literally felt sorry for my parents. So, my son is looking at the business now, right? He's in there. I don't know if he's going to be, my daughter will. I've never put it upon them. I think what I guess I would say is, if you've been successful for this long, I would say to my son, you may not like the way I do a lot of stuff, but I'm doing something right. So take your smarts because he's, he's very educated and he's much more. I think if he does become involved, we're pretty good on the tech, but we could be a whole lot better, trust me, especially with the buying numbers and everything. I'm still doing it I did it last night at home on a pad of paper from the sales to say to the guys, let's watch this, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say just I think I tried to take my father's kindness and sell profitably. So now, but all the heavy lifting is done. Don't be arrogant about it. Hugo Boss makes a lot of money. So just because you don't like the dude that's there now, I don't want to ever do that. You've made lots of money with them. So put your newness, into the business, your creativity that you have. Don't do everything the way I do, but look at and when you really come down to it, pricing fairly. There'd be a couple of things. Price fairly. There was a store here way before your time, and the poor guy died. He was a hell of a nice guy, but it was called the House of Rodney. And he actually did what we did 25 years after. His mistake, and I mean this respectfully, Rod, up there, is he because it was in Halifax, he thought he could make the Ralph Lauren shirt $70 when it was $65 in Montreal or Toronto. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
I've had customers call me from New York and say, okay, there's a Boss suit here. It's $9.98. Have you got this one? Yeah. How much is it? $11.98, $10.98. With the exchange, it's okay, put it away. So even people that are wealthy or people, everybody works hard for their money. Or, you know, you can't rip people. You can't take advantage. So don't try to price something because you think you can get more money. Because what is it, 100 shirts and we can make another 20? Don't ever do that. Stick to our pricing policy all the way through. We always check with the big guys what they're selling it for.
Yep.
And just be fair and honest with customers. And the customer is that, I hate the saying, but it's true, is always right. I had a customer last November come into the store with a Hugo Boss shirt. Now, it'd be like you coming in with a Hugo Boss shirt. You buy a ton from us or your family, and you go, Ross, I bought the shirt, can't part in the collar. So he said that to the girl who realizes she knows it's not our shirt. But she also knows customer's always right. So she comes to get me. And I went down. I said, oh, yeah, Luke, how are you, man? Good, good. Shirt came by. I said, sure, pick one out, man. Guy picks out, give him a new shirt. He walks out the door. She goes, well, you lost it. Why did you do that? I said, you think. Now, in fairness to her, that's not for her to make that decision.
Yeah,
Because, you got to have a receipt and everything, right?
Of course.
But I said, you think he did that on purpose? He's probably bought 50 Boss shirts from us.
Yeah.
He bought, like, that one he's not doing it. It's just where he buys most of his stuff. Now, ironically, I can find out where that shirt's made from a tag. So I called Boss. He said it was bought in Chicago.
Hilarious.
But, you know, do you want to make a customer for life or do you want to piss somebody off?
Yeah.
It's not our deal. So, you know, we've done a lot of those things. We've also showed the door to some people.
Yeah.
But generally, everybody knows. And I always tell them, the customer's right. If you make the wrong decision, I'm going to tell you, but don't ever confront a customer. They're right every time.
So to tie this back in.
Yeah, sorry.
Advice for next
rambling on too much?
No, I love it. I love it. So advice for the next generation is don't forget, you know, where you came from, that legacy of customer experience, all those things, but then bring in something new, you know, as you said, your son with technology or whatever it may be. And, you know, so you can't be afraid of putting your own spin on things, but you got to keep your eye on, I mean, even though you've presumably been more financially successful than when your dad ran the business, you also haven't forgot about his focus on customer service, which is ultimately the thread that's made Duggars, you know, successful for 50 years.
Absolutely. You're bang on. And, you know, I mean, there's lots of father and son business around. I know tons and tons of them. Yeah. Some successful, not so much. But I think the one thing is, it'll be interesting because my son will probably see this because he probably love watching your podcast. But I can't remember one time that my father ever said that was. I can remember one time the way I spoke to an employee once. When he left, because my dad was there, my dad just looked at me and said, that was a little rough.
Yeah.
In other words, you know. But the guy had really screwed up and was costing us, you know. And it was at that growth time, and I regret that, but I remember how he handled it. It wasn't like scolding me, you know, because he knew we had a position to do. So I think that if whoever, it's my son or my daughter, whatever gets into it, I hope I can just have candid conversations, make mistakes. We got enough things in place now. You're not going to make you spend $10,000 on some shirts that didn't sell. We couldn't do that 40 years ago. Today, it wouldn't matter at all. You know, we'll move them off or give them away. So I would say I want to really if they come in, let them go. Because that's what my dad did to me, and look what happened. You know, not that I was smart, but he
figured it out.
Kind of figured it out.
Yeah, so, 100%.
Yeah.
We're running a little tight on time, so I want to make sure I hit a couple
I talk
other.
Too much.
No.
I'll answer fast.
I love it. One of the questions I had was, how has the business changed, or maybe it hasn't, over the 50 years? You know, can you sort of give maybe it's every decade, or maybe it's just, you know, old and new times. How has the fashion industry changed, you know, that you're in, from when you first got into it till now?
I'll try to say as quickly as I can. We used to buy twice a year for a month.
Yeah.
That would be in August and in March. Your seasons are done. You go. You know what you sold, haven't sold. So that would be how you do it. Now, you buy, and the stuff would just all come in, and then you'd sell it, and then you'd go back. Now we buy every month, all the time. We make 4 trips a year. That's changed hugely, both in cost and in inventory. The whole advent of in-stock replenishment for black suits, navy suits, all that was tremendously helpful. So we learned it because when we'd sell a 44 black suit, we'd be calling up and paying extra shipping to get the 44 in because we never had the money. Now it's automatic, coming in. And then, of course, the internet, right? Online sales. We haven't done it yet.
So you're still all retail?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Now, the staff do a lot of, if they know your certain style of sport coat comes in, they take the phone, another whole issue in the store, but they take a picture and send it to you. So we do some of that. My son right now, probably by October, will have some things online. It's a whole other world. And I have friends who spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
One guy's doing it successfully, but it's very difficult, right? Because stores like ours I bought 4 of these jackets. So you put them online, and if you sell 2, or you sell 2 in the store and it's online, well, we sold them both.
Yeah.
Like it's way.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's almost a different business.
It's a different business almost.
Because the customer, what does Dugger's level customer, experience and customer service look like in the online world where there is no face-to-face?
Just shipping it to you. Yeah, like our whole thing is, have a glass of wine or a beer and sit.
Yeah.
But I'm not so naive, and that's right. That's where the young newness could really help to say, okay, we got to softly be in there somehow. I think I told him my son's done some things with videos with his buddies.
Yeah.
And we just put those out. I'm not even sure. It's not YouTube, but
Yeah.
Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the first one he did, somebody in Truro came in and spent $2,800,
Yeah.
bought the whole outfit. So we're trying to get into that, but that's the biggest change. But so far, we have, our sales are still strong, and I think the experience is always going to be there. But we have to be a little more accessible for you. You know the store. You want a white shirt, 16.5. Can you send it to the? Like we do some of that, but we got to be able to do it.
Yeah.
To not just friends and guys we know well, but
more
to
streamlined.
anybody. More streamlined. Yeah.
No, that makes a great deal of sense. What is the one fashion tip that you think everybody should abide by? Is there one? If somebody asks you for advice on how to look as good as you look, is there one piece of advice you
This
can
makes
give?
me feel good. What about you? Do I look that good? You know what I would say, as much as anything, whether it's inexpensive or expensive or whatever it is, don't wear the same blue T-shirt or for 3 years just because you have a yellow T-shirt. Because if it's been a year before, maybe they're a little more trim now. Maybe you don't have pockets on it. So whatever level that you buy, buy it a little bit more regularly. I know it's hard to, for a lot of people to buy clothes, but just try to be a little, because the cheaper makers all knock off the better stuff. So you can look trendy, when if pants are, I think the pants are going to start widening up, but if pants are narrow, don't go to whatever store you buy and buy the older ones that are, buy what's in style. Whether it's, $20 jeans or $200.
Yeah.
They try to make them look the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to throw out a couple brand names, and I want to hear the first word that comes to your mind when I say it.
Okay.
Hugo Boss.
Worldly.
Ralph Lauren.
Iconic.
Bugatti.
Working hard.
Eton.
Fantastic, shouldn't have sold.
Zara.
I really don't know. My daughter buys there.
Yeah.
I can't say that I know too much about them, but they seem to sell cool stuff.
Yeah. Okay. And the last one, Calvin Klein.
Gone.
All right. One last question. I think you sort of answered this already, but do you hope your kids get into the family business?
I never felt pressure to do it myself. I think I could have left when I was 22 after it was going a bit. I think it'd be fantastic, but the last thing I want them to do is to be in there and not want to be there, because it'll show. So it's totally up to them. You know, I mean, I think it would be a very saleable business. You know, and maybe you guys would buy it, but because for sure it would be. And I've had people come and see me, but I'm really they're 22. I'm around there until they finally say, oh, we're in or we're out, and whether that's 2 years, 5 years. If they said they're out, then I would probably say, okay, let's make a few phone calls and, it'll be time. But I really feel there's interest from my son. Like anyway, he's going to see this. But I really would not be disappointed if he said no. I'd say, okay, that's life. And, another one of my dad's things, no sense looking behind you. It's gone. Just keep looking forward. So I did say to I'll give you this one last thing from my dad. 'Cause before he passed away, I said, Dad, are you concerned about any legacy, right? And he looked at me, he said, as hard as this has been, take the money and run. Like, you know what I mean? So, there was no ego there, man.
Yeah.
So, it feels good that he had said that to me, because you'd probably always wonder,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Please like and subscribe, ring that bell so you get notified about new episodes coming out. And please share with other family businesses, business families, or people that work in family businesses. It helps me a lot. Thank you so much. Take care.